You're listening to episode 174 of the Tennis Files podcast on mindset transformation with special guest Nathan de Veer. Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Tennis Files podcast. My name is Mehrban, a former Division I college tennis player, and on the show I interview the world's top pros, coaches, and experts to help you improve your tennis game. And today I have Coach Nathan de Veer, who is a mental performance expert, and he specializes in helping tennis players and athletes master their mind with proven mindset strategies. He is a very good player as well. He played Division I tennis at DePaul University, and he's based in Amsterdam, Netherlands. And you can check out his work at nathandeveer.com, as well as his social profiles, which you'll link to in the on the show notes page. But I'm excited to have him on because he has posted a lot of great content and made a lot of great content on the mental game. And, you know, as you probably know, if you've listened to me before, I highly stress this area because it really can limit your potential and what you can achieve. A lot of times we blame our technique or even our strategy when really what we need the most is to just shift our mindset, and that will allow us to persevere both in matches and in your path to achieving your true tennis potential and even in practices. So I really think that this episode is going to be of a lot of value for you. And before we launch in, I just want to obviously wish you all the best and hope you're doing well and hope you're getting to play some tennis safely. And it's also pretty cool that Nathan just spontaneously during this episode decided to do a giveaway of sorts where if you actually follow him at his Instagram page and then like his content and then share it as well. When I say content, actually, I should specify if you follow his account, like his post on our podcast episode and then share it, then he will raffle off one free coaching session to one person out of all the individuals who end up doing that. So that's pretty exciting. Let me actually bring up his YouTube page so I can, or his Instagram page so I can let you know his handle here. And so you can check him out at The Tennis Mindset Expert. Again, that's The Tennis Mindset Expert, and look for his post about our podcast episode. And obviously, you know, this will apply if you're listening, you know, around the end of November. So I'm not exactly sure when Nathan is going to call the drawing off, but probably within the next few days after the episode is published on November 25 of 2020. But regardless of when you listen to this episode, I think you'll get a lot of value from it. And again, I'm going to present you a pretty insightful interview on how to transform your mindset and reach your true tennis potential with Nathan de Veer. So let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Tennis Files podcast. It's really a pleasure and an honor to have Nathan de Veer on the podcast. And today we're going to talk about how you can transform your mindset and reach your true potential. I think this is an area that a lot of people are always asking me about, and I wonder about myself. You know, I've had some struggles with the mental side of things, and it's often one of the most important aspects of the game that we need to improve upon. So first off, Nathan, thanks a lot for joining us, and it's really great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, I've obviously got a lot of questions for you, Nathan. You know, you're a mental performance expert, and you know, I've seen all the great reviews that your clients have given you. So I guess we can just jump right in here. Has the mental game always been an area that you've excelled at, or did you, like myself, struggle with this area as well at some point in your career?
Yeah, so I got started actually with mindset because it was a very big struggle for me when I was younger. It started for me when I was like 12 years old, when things got a bit more serious for me. And it was pretty bad. I got so nervous in matches where I couldn't hit a single ball anymore over the net. And it got actually to a point for me where I used to hyperventilate, throw up in tennis matches even, where my mom had to be on the court. So yeah, it was a big struggle for me. And that was kind of the motivation for me, just to help myself, like first. And now, obviously, I'm helping others as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the same experiences. I remember as a junior, at some point, I would even, be scared to play a certain player, or I'd worry about how I'd be looked at if I didn't win against this opponent. And so it's always been tough. I mean, do you remember a specific match that, probably would be interesting for people to hear about, where you can get into some detail and then what happened, as like probably a bad memory. So sorry to bring it up.
Oh, sure. Putting me on the spot right here. No, all good. Maybe one memory was where I was like 14 or something, where I had to play a match, and a 2-hour drive, like here in the Netherlands, by the way, is a long drive. I know in the US it's like nothing, but where I had to throw up like before before we left, and my parents were just oh, there we go again. And then we drove to the tournament. I lost to a guy who I would say like normally would be my level, and it was 6-1, 6-0. And then in no time we would have to drive back. And my dad, I guess, was very disappointed, and it was just not a great experience. So.
Yeah, I mean, no worries. I'm sure we've all been through it. I mean, what's the cause of these types of nerves? Just kind of curious to get into that, to maybe examine it further.
Yeah, no, sure, definitely. It depends for every player. Like, it usually it starts when things when they become like more important, and it can be due to afraid to lose. What other people are thinking about you, maybe like your friends, like usually like people that you look up to, like your parents, your coach. But something that is not being discussed very often is like, it's not even the how they perceive you, but what I've experienced like from working with people, it's more the emotions that are associated with that. So like, the feeling of being ashamed or disappointed or feeling unworthy or things like that, and that makes it more uncomfortable, really, and what we want to avoid. And the more we want to avoid avoid that, the more the nerves kind of show up, basically, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah, it does make sense. So, I mean, I guess what you're saying is, rather than ignore or block out these thoughts, I mean, I guess we tackle it head on? Like, how do we end up, what do we do? How do we tackle it head on?
Yeah, it's a good point, because I feel like sometimes there's a bit of a misperception or about it, because some people say, well, we just have to block it off and just go, or some people might say you just have to face your fears, just overcome it. And I've tried it, and it did really help for me. For some people, like, it helps to just face the fears if they have a certain level of confidence. But in general, what needs to happen is to actually let go of the fear. So let's say you have a pressure of like, you don't want to lose, let's say. If you can learn to be okay actually with losing that match, the pressure will subside. And it might sound a bit counterintuitive, because some people might say, well, are you going to stop trying? Like, are you just not going to care? And that's not it, because you do want to give your 100%. Like, you do want to, hey, of course, you're there to win. You're going, you're there like to be at your best. But at the same time, if you lose or if you play bad, that you can be okay with that as well. And it's easier said than done, obviously. And that's just like the process that I take people through. But that's basically a go-to tip that you can use in the moment right away to accept or be okay with, like, let's say, a worst case scenario, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it's interesting because it made me think about my junior career, and I've seen players do this as well as I myself at some point where I'm playing a match against a player, and then it's close, and then all of a sudden it's almost like a lazy thought comes into my head where I say, "Yep, it's fine if I lose, whatever." So then at that point, then you kind of like stop giving your full intensity. So you're saying that it's different, where it's said you're going to try your best, but you still say like, well, I'm fine with whatever the outcome is as long as I give my best effort. Is that pretty much what you're getting at?
Yeah, you got to see it sort of as a balance. When I work with players, I have like I'm not sure, like, can you see my arm here correctly, or is it out of the screen? Maybe it's so, like, basically how much how attached you are to the outcome. Let's say if this is the middle, is my hand in the middle of the screen, by the way, or is
pretty
it
much
better?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, this is better. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Sure. So if here's like the flow, let's say you're like in the zone. If you're like too much, let's say on the right side where you care, or where you're too attached to the result, or like an easier word is maybe where you make it really important. This is when you feel more of the pressure, right? And like you get more tight, and actually studies are showing that it increases the chances on injuries as well, which happen more in matches as well. So that's an important side, and maybe for people who have injuries to also realize, hey, the mental game also helps with to reduce the chances of injuries. But to get back to my point, so here's then the flow, and then let's say here's like an area where you don't care. Don't care too much. It's kind of like, well, I'm just here for fun, whatever. It doesn't really matter. This is where you lose your focus. So you want to get to, like, of course, it's tough to find a perfect balance and to always be in flow. Like, it's always like finding the sweet spot. And by the way, if someone is telling you who has the secret to flow, then unless you're like a sort of an enlightened human being, I guess I wouldn't believe that person right away. But yeah, you want to give your best, your 100%, but at the same time, okay, with whatever you want to try and avoid.
So, I mean, that's a great visual there, and appreciate that. So, it made me think about like the pros, where it's kind of funny how, us mere mortals or amateurs, when we play a tournament, often there's not even any money at stake or anything. But then you look at the professionals, and they have, not only a huge sums of money sometimes, especially in Grand Slams, obviously, but also, a bunch of points and financial obligations, where you could easily be thinking, oh, if I don't win this round, then I won't have enough money for, my coach, and etc. So how do the pros handle all this pressure, and why do we still get super nervous, and sometimes maybe more nervous than them, even though we don't have those types of pressures?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like you've seen, like maybe you've watched the US Open final, that where Zverev and team were both had their moments where they had a lot of pressure. So I think it's key for people just to know that, like, hey, you're not the only one who is experiencing some nerves or some of the pressure. Like, even the pros have it too. But what I always share with them is that, like, the degree or the intensity of the nerves is not as high compared to like the average players. It's like the pros are able to play more freely, and that's also why they're at the top, because you don't see many pros who get tight in every match. And after that, you asked like a way to deal with that, or a way to why the average player
why
has it too.
Right. Why the average player sometimes even has more stress than a professional player who has like all these other, money, points, etc. on the line.
Sure. Yeah. It all comes down to eventually self worth, and like the people who experience a lot of pressure have usually like some challenges with their self-esteem and with their self worth as well. And if that's basically on the line, so like let's say if they play worse or if they lose, if that's associated to how they feel about themselves, then that's a big hurdle. Many pros, I think, have developed a high self worth from a young age, or they've done mental training. Yes.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I guess, is it really important for players to remember that, tennis is just tennis and they'll try their best there, but then, they're still a great person and they've got all these other things in life as well. And so just because you lose doesn't mean that you're somehow less worthy than you actually are.
Yeah, exactly. And that sort of needs to sink in at a subconscious level, because you can tell it to a kid or to a person, and they might think, oh, that's great. But then when they play a match, like all the fears and the pressure will come up. So when I work with players, I have like an entire, how do you say, like many methods sort of combined, like to tie it all together. But like that's basically what it is. Like it helps really for players to realize that, hey, even though if tennis feels like your entire life, I always encourage players to also enjoy spending time with friends, have some hobbies that you enjoy, and to feel good about that, or have your sense of enjoyment in other areas of life as well. Because let's say if you get injured as a competitive tennis player or even as a professional tennis player, and if tennis is your entire life, if if that's your identity and that's who you are, and you can't do that anymore, then like it's very tough mentally to deal with that. So that's why I always encourage the other things as well.
Yeah, that's really solid, Nathan. So something that I found interesting on your website, and just trying to get a sense of your philosophy about the mental game and mindset, you mentioned that traditional sports psychology with techniques like breathing exercises, rituals, and positive affirmations don't create lasting transformation. So I was wondering, why these techniques aren't enough, by themselves to change your mental game and your mindset.
Yeah, it's a good point. So, like I mentioned, when I got started with the mental game and everything, I was about 14 years old. And I remember like I would try and sing a song or do like a breathing method, or try to be all positive or be confident or tell myself those kind of things. And in the moments, they would maybe help for, here and there when the pressure would come up, or when I would start to be negative. But let's say if I would make a mistake again, or if I would be have a break point, then the nerves would come up again more. So I think in the moment it can definitely it has its value. It's it can definitely help, but in order to make a lasting shift with your mindset and to really make a transformation, is to shift your identity, to really become basically a new person. And sometimes we have a tendency to think like, well, I'm just the way I am, but you can actually change and rewire your mind. And so like what I do, like one of the tools that I do is I help them to become very relaxed, sort of in a meditative state of mind. And this is where you have the access with your subconscious mind. And that's basically where all the programming and all some of your beliefs and things are stored, like the nerves and things like that. So, and that's how you basically get into the operating system, as I like to call it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess I want to dig a little bit deeper into the reprogramming phase. What's like maybe like the first step or the first two steps to getting started on that journey of, even if you're a super nervous person and you struggle so much that you can still change yourself and your mindset?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is kind of like the secret sauce that I use when I work with players, because this is this is so important, really, to really make a lasting transformation. And oh, just on a side on something that just came up actually now is that too. Sometimes with mental training, if you only do it with your conscious mind, like I just mentioned, like a breathing method or a positive affirmation, it just won't like. In order to really make a shift, you really have to make a commitment to yourself and to stay and to do it on a daily basis. So when I work with players, like I just share with them, I bring them in a calm state of mind and almost kind of a meditative state of mind. And then step number one is always to become really aware and to be clear about some of the patterns that are really holding you back. So let's say if you're a competitive player and in matches you feel more pressure. Okay, like what is triggering that? Like, is it that in the beginning of a match or on a break point? And again, to realize that, okay, what am I trying to avoid here? Maybe you feel it more when people are watching you, and then to recontextualize that and to see like, hey, to look at it with a new way, in a new way that helps them feel them more free and empowered. So,
yeah, that makes sense. So I guess one specific example that this is what I feel sometimes, it's been tough on occasion. So like, let's say you're playing in a USCA league and it's like, sectionals, the last match. And then your main source of being nervous is your teammates and trying to win for them, and it's very tight, and if you win then you'll advance to nationals or something like that. So like if you're mainly preoccupied with that sort of pressure, then I mean, what's something that we could do to help with that situation?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I've had this myself actually. When I played Division I college tennis, I had to play every now and then. I had these, where you have to clinch, right? And there was this one moment where I had match points, and it was senior day, so I felt really bad actually about some of my teammates who were seniors. I felt so disappointed. So this is a good example actually, and it's about finding an empowering meaning, even though it doesn't work out. So, let's say if you feel responsible for winning the match, let's say, to realize that, well, hey, everyone is playing their own part and you're doing your best, the best that you can. And to realize that, hey, even though you lost, even though they are disappointed in you, you've done everything that you can. And for some players, that realization can give them a sense of like, okay, well, I've done everything that I could. Or let's say, even if they are disappointed in you and you feel a sense of, I don't know, maybe you feel ashamed. And to realize, well, okay, I will feel ashamed. Maybe I've experienced it in the past before. And it's really the end of the world, Something I do as well with players is to, I compare it with something that is much bigger. So like, let's say, maybe they've had an experience where they met some homeless people who don't even have food, and people are dreaming of playing college tennis or to be in their shoes. And to connect with the gratitude of that, let's say.
Yeah, no, that's one thing that a technique that I really enjoy, and has helped me a lot. Sometimes when I'm not playing so well or having a frustrating session, I actually do think of how lucky I am to be able to play tennis. Think of how many billions of people who can't even afford a racket or even tennis balls, or they don't have courts, or their country is, in civil war. So those types of things really help a lot. And so that's a great technique that you're saying that, if you have lost a match and, you think about the bigger picture. And I've heard also, even teams and players who have suffered big losses, they talk about, well, it's nothing compared to, the pandemic, let's say, or other things. So that's a great technique. Really good stuff there. Nathan, so how about losing streaks? So let's say you've got a player who, and I think I saw this even on your website, you know, so a player who they have like a big losing streak and they can't seem to put it together. Like, what steps do you usually take in order to get that player to still, you know, perform and play to their best of their ability without like having that in their mind that they've been losing for a while?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in most cases, if people lose, they feel worse about themselves because how well they played is tied to that. And so it's key then to, it depends on the person specifically, first of all, but I can just pick an example. Like that's a common one where people come to me for. So let's say, you know, they feel they don't have that sense of confidence in their matches because they've lost many in a row. And they feel less confident because they feel more pressure right now because of they don't want to lose again. To recontextualize it and to come up with reasons why it's not for playing, but to, let's say, just by shifting to enjoying the match, let's say. And by, hey, whether you're going to win or not today, that's out of your control. Even though it might feel like it's in your control, many players, they think also that how well they play is in their control. But even that is not really in your control, because I'm sure that if you're listening to this and you tried your best, you gave your 100%, but it still didn't go the way you want. So to let go of that and to focus on enjoyment is one suggestion.
I like it. You know, one thing that's really obviously, you know, crucial to playing well is to keep your focus and your concentration. And I've got this email tons of times where the player says, hey, like my biggest issue is mental game and I can't seem to focus, or I'll get up, you know, 6-2, 4-2, and then all of a sudden I'll just explode in terms of mentally and forget my, I might lose my concentration and focus, and then I'll just lose. So what's the key to maintaining focus and concentration as tennis players?
Yeah. Some of the mistakes that people sometimes make is that, well, they just have to focus better. Or let's say if you're on a losing streak with the previous question that you just asked, like I just have to work harder. But if you understand that how well you play is always a result of your state of mind, if you believe that to be true, and to realize, okay, so I just have to reduce the mental, like the overthinking, the pressure, the frustration. And because usually it's not really that you lose your focus that is the problem. That's usually one of the symptoms I've noticed from working with people, is that like usually, let's say they lose their focus when they're up in the score with 6-2. You know, you just want to set with 6-2 and then suddenly you lose your focus. So why is that? And sometimes it comes down to a fear of losing, actually. So for instance, if you win with 6-2 and if you lose, it's worse because you've won the first set with 6-2. So if you try and you lose, that makes it even worse usually for players. Like let's say if you give it your 100%, it's usually worse than if you kind of don't really give your 100% and you lose. Sometimes this is unconscious, by the way, for players, but it's sometimes even an excuse to not give their best. And then they say, well, I lost my focus or things like that. But it makes losing not as bad. So instead of working on your focus, usually you have to work on the cause, which is reducing the pressure, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, one other question is dealing with people who get really upset when they're on the court. So these are the types of players that they'll make a few errors in a row, and then all of a sudden they'll start yelling at themselves. So, how do we help these players with that situation? Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we're getting the whole range of players. I like it.
Trying.
With all the mental. No, it's good. Yeah, I think it's helpful for players. Because usually, like if you make one mistake, it's not so bad. But then you make a second and a third, and things slowly start to creep in, and that's when we usually smash a racket, or we yell or smack a ball away, and it's key that even though you make one mistake, to already, for instance, accept the mistakes, because if you don't, they slowly add up. And again, with mental training, you can't just kind of wing it or kind of try it. And that's like sometimes the problem that tennis players have. Like they said, I've tried mental training or it doesn't work for me, but it takes a real commitment. And just one of the simplest ways is acceptance when that happens, and to make it a priority to actually master or to improve your mindset and make that more important than winning the match. And it becomes easier to understand if you realize that, again, that how well you play is always a result of your state of mind. And if it really sinks in, and if you see the evidence of it, if you haven't already, then it becomes more fun, tennis, and you start to play better as well. So
no, that's a great piece of advice there. And I mean, I think the common theme so far, or one of the common themes, is just being realistic and setting your expectations at the proper point. Because this makes me think of Craig O'Shaughnessy, and just in general, like the statistics on the tours where like the number one player in the world is winning like 50% of the points, like 53%, like or even less. And so that tells you right there that you're not going to be winning every single point. Things will happen. I mean, also it's probably too much information, but I've been looking lately more at investing and how to do that. And then I mean, with those, like for in the long term you can win, but in the short term you have all these ups and downs, and it's just a normal part of the game that you just have to accept is going to happen. So it's really important there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So how about players who feel like we have this potential inside of us to be really great, but it seems like we're not unlocking it. Do you have any advice for us to help us unlock our potential that we feel is there, but we're not quite getting to or progressing towards?
Yeah. Again, it's very specific to the person, because for some, like this is what I'm working now on a program to create an environment. I've done some one-on-one coaching, but I'm moving into the group coaching, because I realized that it really inspires other people if you're surrounded by people who are also on the same path by working on your mindset. Let's say if you work on your mindset, then it helps if other people also understand what you're going through, instead of not supporting you maybe, or trying to focus really on the outcome, whereas you're focused more on the process, let's say. I think the biggest key for reaching your potential, Timothy Galway actually has this great formula. He doesn't share this in his first book, but in his other books he talks about it more. But again, it all comes down to how well you play is always a result of your mindset at that moment. So if you reduce the mental interference, like the pressure and the doubts or frustration, the overthinking, the potential will naturally it will come out more. Like if you look at Yannick Sinner, for instance, a great guy. He's just been moving up the rankings and rankings. And I feel like one of the keys, I don't know him personally, I would love to get to know him, but I think it's just because he doesn't have a lot of mental interference. He's playing so freely and so in the moment. You see him rarely really get upset, and that's also one of the keys. Also, by mastering your mindset, you make faster progress. So yeah.
Are there any players that actually need to get mad at themselves? I mean, obviously, like there's so many different players on tour and everywhere, and it seems like there are some players that, do get more frustrated than others, but they're still doing well. So is that at all necessary? I don't know, like for them to get their juices flowing or whatnot, or is it pretty much always going to be counterproductive to get angry?
Yeah, it's a good point. I have this question. Many players ask me this question, but it depends. If you are able to resolve this for yourself internally, then I suggest that. But for some players, it can be great to just yell it out. Of course, I'm not a big fan of smacking your racket or smacking a ball away and doing that kind of thing. But that's actually a better way to release it than to crop it up inside you. Because if you hold it back, but it's still sort of, I always use this metaphor of a volcano. Like it sort of, it stirs up and slowly builds up, and then you make that one mistake, and then bang, there you smash or throw your racket or whatever you're doing. So if you can't solve it internally, then a yell is a good way to just kind of let go.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think in all my years of playing the game, a couple decades, I think, or maybe 3, but the only time that I feel that getting angry helped me is this one time I was playing in what they call zonals. So they take the top like 10 or so players, or maybe if it was 15, to play other sections in the United States. And then I was losing to this player like 6-2, 5-1. And then my dad, he was bringing me or asking me if I wanted a bagel. And then I yelled and said I didn't need a bagel, and like I was basically really frustrated. But then, all of a sudden, that made that anger into the thought that like there's no way I'm going to lose this match, and then somehow I came back. So that was the only time I remember it helping for me. So I think it's kind of like what you said. Maybe if you can channel it towards actually a positive thing, then it'll help. But otherwise, a lot of times it's just gonna put you in the tailspin. So just want to bring that story up. Also practices. So we get this question commonly where the players, they will be playing really well in practices. I mean, go figure, it's not nothing on the line. And then all of a sudden during match play, that's when they're not playing well and they're getting tight and everything. So what types of, advice do you have for us to be able to have more parity in terms of how well we're playing in practices versus matches?
Yeah. Well, it all comes down to, like I just shared, like here, like the importance is high. And that's why in matches, like the frustrations, the emotions, and the pressure increases too. The mental interference is basically increasing, and that reduces or makes you play worse, basically. So it comes down again to how can you reduce the importance. A lasting transformation, like you have to do it on a subconscious level and shift your identity. But I just shared earlier that you can reduce the importance by being okay with a worst case scenario. Another tool that you can use is to bring your mind back to the moment, because if you feel more pressure, if you're playing worse, you're usually thinking about the score more, and the more you're in your head, usually the worse you play. So by bringing your mind to the moment, so you're not going to think about the future or about the past, but just being in a moment, that's where the pressure will reduce as well. So making that a routine in matches between points, for instance, is a valuable tool.
Gotcha, Nathan. And when you work with your clients, is there any sort of exercise or routines that you prescribe them to do maybe daily or very frequently throughout a week to help them just overall with their mindset?
I'm a big fan of meditation because it helps you to become more aware. Usually, like, we do everything on autopilot. So, and if you're on autopilot, then you're not aware of the pressure or the things. I hear it many times. Even was it Swiatek, who just won Roland Garros? Her coach told her that she played worse in a match, but she didn't even realize that after she watched herself back on the replay, and she's like, "Oh, I was so tight." So sometimes we don't even realize it. So awareness is always the first step to become aware. Hey, how am I feeling? And even though sometimes when I work with players, they don't even feel the pressure or the fact that they're not as confident. But if you play worse, it's actually already like an indicator that your mindset is off in some way.
Got it. So I don't know. Obviously, you have a lot of clients, but there was one, I guess, testimonial from Mark S. So shout out to Mark. But he mentioned that by using a few simple tools from you, he noticed improvements in his play. So I was wondering if you could kind of speak to any of these tools that you can remember using with Mark, or just tools in general that have helped your clients.
Mark, it's been a while. I'm not sure exactly what I told him because I'm working with so many, but a tool. So something we haven't discussed in this episode. So one of the tools that I also just share is reflecting on your tennis, let's say. Like, so besides the mindset tools, I also work on like just how to improve your performance in your tennis, and to see, hey, what are the best in the world doing that you can utilize as well to help you with your tennis. And I see so many tennis players, they work really hard, but then like they work maybe on too many things, or it's a bit here and a bit that. So one of the tools is just to see, hey, reflecting on your game, let's say, for instance, on your tennis, and just seeing like, hey, what works and what doesn't work, whether it's a focus exercise or just working on a specific thing, and just to raise your awareness actually of, hey, what's working and what's not.
Perfect. So Nathan, so clutch playing. So, okay, so we have a player who it seems like when it's, 6-all, 5-all in the tiebreak or something like that, they just seem to not be able to get the get it going, or they seem to always lose those points. So for these players who have trouble playing it well in the big moments, what advice do you have for these players?
Yeah. So again, like, they play worse due to the mental interference. Obviously, that is coming up because it's more important at that point. So it's key, like, not to get too hyped up or to act all confident, because that's fake, or like you need to feel actually more free in order to play better. So one way is to bring your thinking mind basically to your senses, where you become more present. Very simple, but yeah, very powerful.
Got it. And for sometimes I get confused, or I guess I did. I know myself a little better now, but in terms of like, how hyped should I be before a match? I remember, one match I was just super relaxed and didn't go very well. And then another, I was listening to, crazy, fast music. And then I was also like just not playing as well either. So how do we figure out what type of player we are in terms of like, how intense or or excited we should be before a match?
The key is not to look as so much to the physical things that you can do before a match, like let's say listen to the best music or whatever, but it's actually a lot more valuable to reduce the importance in the first place, because let's say if your phone isn't working, or if something is not working and you can't do your routine that's perfect, then what? Then you create even more pressure. So of course Nadal is lucky that he can always put his bottles straight. So you found a routine that he can always do, but it's much more valuable to actually to reduce the meaning, basically, so you're not as worried about playing or winning in the first hand, because once you let go of that, then it doesn't really matter if you listen to music or if you do a good group. Of course you want to do the best warm-up possible, but it's from a more relaxed state of mind.
Got it. Perfect. So you talked about Nadal and the bottle routine. I was wondering, I mean, would it help us to also have routines like that? Because I don't know if is it that having that puts him in a familiar train of thought, like every single time, like the environment is similar, so that helps him operate similarly and perform well. Is that the case, or is it just like something that isn't too inconsequential, or is inconsequential?
Sure, that's a good point. Again, it's not about or one of the traps here is by making that very important. Like, okay, I need to do this in order to feel good, so then I can play well. I suggest routines because it helps you to bring yourself into the right state of mind where it's habitual and you don't have to think about too many things, and you can just you can just be in the moment, but just be mindful of why you're doing it.
Gotcha, Nathan. Perfect. So who is a professional tennis player, male or female, that you feel embodies your philosophy and the mental game characteristics that you would want to see in all of your clients and players?
That's a good question.
Please don't say McEnroe.
Don't say McEnroe. Marat Safin. No, I'm just kidding. It's kind of funny because I don't really have a big like one person that I always think like, hey, that's the person. Sometimes I'm also kind of a fan of Nadal, but then on another day I'm a fan of Djokovic, and then I love watching Federer. So I'm sorry, guys, I don't have this one guy that I love, but what I notice is I tend to love the players who are always, or like who are in the zone at that moment. At the moment right now, I think Yannick Sinner is a great example. He's still very young, but he is so free, and of course, every now and then I think he does throw his racket, so maybe not the best example, but I think, there's not a perfect player, obviously, but I think he is such a great example of keeping his cool, keeping his focus. He still he fights for every point, but he's really free in his mind.
Yeah, definitely. And so how do you get a player to just get to be more motivated and play more intense? You have a client who you can see that they're very talented. I mean, maybe to some degree we could think about Kyrgios like this, but they have great potential, but then it just seems like they're not giving that next level effort. So how do you get this player to indeed give that amount of the effort required to get to the next level?
Yeah, I think it's again, it really depends on the person, because the environment can help a lot, but I think it's important to understand, like for parents and also for coaches, that sometimes the causes can be a little bit like deeper within, because a lack of motivation can sometimes be the result of the pressure that someone is putting on themselves. Because, every time having to play that match, having to deal like with the pressure or the money or with losing and things like that, like if that's on your mind all the time, then that will really reduce the motivation. So then it's not really about being more motivated and pumped up or working even harder, which is unfortunately what some players do, but really going to the root cause and, hey, why are you not, enjoying your tennis, or what's causing why you're not feeling motivated. So this, it can differ for everyone, but there are two keys. Like one of the keys is, like I've shared, reducing the mental interference, what is blocking the enjoyment and the excitement and the motivation. And at the same time, learn to tap into your why, like the reason what really motivates you. And I always suggest intrinsic motivators to motivate you.
Got it. And so for those motivators, like what's the proper way to go about? I mean, do you just like every single day when you wake up, like you think about it, or is it like where you think about the whys before the match or during the match? Like what's the preferred way to go about that?
Yeah. Like again, there's like not like a perfect way, but and it's for everyone, this is different, but I suggest to at least look at your why, or the reasons that motivate you on a daily basis, because it's easy to kind of to get into a routine where it's just you go through the motions, and so you stir that emotion every day that helps you to inspire you.
Got it. And as far as writing and journaling, do you have, or is that like a big component of, working with your clients? And then if so, any insights into, is this like an everyday thing, and maybe even like length or what the topic is about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've actually, I do this for myself because I still compete at a high level as well. I do it after every practice, every match. And it's a habit for me. And I've been trying and experimenting to see, hey, like what works best and how can I do this even more efficient. First of all, I would say start reflecting, like I just mentioned earlier, on your practices and your matches, because most players aren't doing it. And if they're doing it, not maybe consistently, so that can help. And to see what went well, what can I improve?
Got it. And yeah, as I have said in the intro, you before we started speaking, you played Division I tennis at DePaul University. I also played D1 tennis at UMBC. So yeah, you played at a great high level, and you play right now. Double-headed question, I guess, is what types of tournaments or level are you playing at now, and then also what is like something that even with all your knowledge in the mental game sphere, what is one thing that maybe you've struggled with recently as far as the mental side?
Sure. So at the moment I play money tournaments in the Netherlands. Futures is what I plan to play as well. And something I've struggled with, first of all, I shared this actually also the other day on my social media, that I'm still a human too, and I still have my struggles as well. Like it's not that since of course I know quite a lot and I have made a lot of progress, that I still have my challenges, and I just want people to know that it's okay to have challenges, first of all. Because acknowledging it is usually one of the toughest things, and I've had it as well for myself, like to acknowledge the fact, like, hey, even though I'm a mindset coach and I'm helping all these people, that's to acknowledge, hey, I still have some challenges as well, and to be open about it, and to be like, hey, sometimes in matches I have some pressure too. For instance, at the beginning of a match, a bit more, and things like that. So I think it's key also just for people and for tennis players to learn, like, hey, it's okay to be vulnerable, because that is usually what's holding so many players back from really asking for help, whether it's just a coach or shared with their parents, because we all feel like we have to sort of, we have to show a good composure in a society today, or like in the tennis world, or like everyone, or I don't want to say everyone, but many players are sort of hiding maybe some of their insecurities. And that's what I also really appreciate with Dominic Thiem, let's say. He shared also, I think, after he lost the final, or when he played against Djokovic in the semis, that like, hey, I got super tight. I actually had a lot of pressure, and to realize, like, hey, we're all just humans. It's okay.
Yeah, 100%. And along with that, or maybe it's a little different question, but how about players? And I've had this a lot, and it's very difficult to this type of situation. But like when you're playing somebody who's a lot better than you, or at least like rankings wise, let's say you're playing the number 2 seed. At this point, once they see the matchup, a lot of players that's it. Like they already have lost before the match has begun. So, how do you say, or what can you give in terms of advice for people to cope with this very common situation?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because this is a big thing for many players when you look up to someone who has a higher UTR, who is higher on the rankings or whatever in the lineup. So it's important to develop the belief in themselves, like, hey, I can, and more importantly, I deserve to beat these type of players, even though it's a ranking, or even though. So something that can help sometimes is to realize that, hey, I've beaten players like this before, even if it was in a practice, or even though when I work with players, like I make them write down also some of these experiences, like to see and to really develop the belief that, hey, I can and deserve to beat these type of players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great technique. I mean, I'm actually forgetting what domain this was, if it was tennis or not. But when you're trying to achieve something really, I guess, big in life, then a lot of times it helps similarly to think about, what types of big things did I achieve before, and then that kind of gives you the belief that I can replicate this. I've done it before, in a similar vein. So that's a really good technique. Just generally about mindset and meditation, actually, I want to ask you about that a little bit. Do you have any parameters in terms of like how long do you think meditation is, like a rough band on that, and also frequency that you think will really make a difference, with our mindset? Like, for example, is 5 minutes a day enough, or do we need to do more? That type of thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've been meditating for a couple of years now, and only actually until recently I have had a lot more benefit from the meditations. And like I used to just kind of sit down for 10 minutes and just focus on my breath. But it's key to, let's say, if you're focused for 10 minutes, but then like the 23 hours and the 50 minutes for the rest of your day, you're, like you're on your phone, like these things with like your social media and everything that's been going on, so many players are just it's actually training your mind to be distracted because it's made to with the purpose almost like to keep you sort of addicted almost. So like I think meditation is a great tool. when I work with players, I give them visualizations that they don't have to sit down for like one time for 20 minutes, but something that's very short and more repetitive, because that is like what programs subconscious mind more. But to answer your question, meditation, I would highly recommend it for everyone just to start it. And again, repetition is key, but also to be aware of your mind during the day and some of your habits, because if you're behind social media too long, then that it can negatively impact your tennis as well. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, you bring up a great point. I think that social media, obviously, you know, these companies are trying to get you to watch your screens as much as possible on their particular platform or app. And so, you know, you're battling against these geniuses who are doing everything they can to get you addicted to the screens. And so there's actually a great book. Well, I mean, from what I've heard, I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to order it soon, called Indistractable by, I think, Near Eyal. Apologies if I get that incorrect, but that I hear.
Neil Patel, or
it might be
Near Eyal.
Yeah.
Eyal, yeah.
Exactly. So really good one there. Yeah, I think Neil Patel is a different guy with the internet business and stuff. But yeah, so definitely something to think about, and that it can have a big impact in, you know, your ability to concentrate on the court as well. So consistency in results. What are some keys to being more consistent with your results, and just generally being more consistent in your positive mindset?
Yeah, good point. Because in tennis, it's all about consistency. Everyone can have one great day or be one great guy, but you see that the best in the world, and especially at the higher levels, consistency is what separates like the best from the rest. So, and that comes down to being consistent with your habits, and that again is a result of a consistent mindset, because that has an impact on your actions, on the actions that you take. So it comes down to, again, how well you play is always, again, like I keep sharing it, but I know for people it helps to sink in deeper, that it is always that how well you play is always a result or a reflection of your mindset. So instead of focusing on I have to play better or I have to change my swing or my technique, I suggest to focus on, hey, how can I bring myself in a better state of mind, and having the trust that by doing that, I will automatically play better tennis. So, making, or if you make winning the inner game a priority, that I think is one of the best ways to improve your consistency.
Excellent stuff, Nathan. Totally agree with that. We just mentioned a book, although it wasn't quite, directly related to tennis or the mental game, but the mindset it was. But what are 3 books that you would gift to a friend to help them improve their mindset?
3 books. I suggest The Inner Game of Tennis. I think it's a great one. I think actually, instead of maybe reading 3 books, I always try to keep things really simple, because the more overwhelmed and the more strategies you have, the more you start to think. So it's maybe a different kind of answer, but to dive deep into one book and really master the fundamentals of it. He has actually, Timothy Galway has a second book as well. And I'm not sure, I think you can find it on Amazon, but I think it's actually a better book than his first Inner Game of Tennis. It's called Inner Tennis Playing the Game, I think. But it's a bit more practical compared to the first book, but I highly recommend that.
Very nice. I didn't even realize they had a second book. I know the first one was very iconic, so it's exciting to hear that the second one is potentially even better. Great, excellent stuff.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a fun question and usually provokes a good amount of thought from the guests. So if you were able to erect a huge billboard in, maybe the most highly trafficked city, in, let's say, in Amsterdam or area in Amsterdam where you live, and you could write anything that you wanted on it, what would you put on that billboard?
Just in a city, or for tennis players more specifically?
Oh, I would say more specifically for tennis players in regards to the mental game.
Gotcha. A billboard was just, yeah, this is a tough one.
On the spot.
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot there again. I think, yeah, I know I might sound a bit boring or repetitive, but how well you play is a result of your state of mind at that moment, always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's huge. That's super important. If you don't take anything else away, I think that by itself will be a great thing to remember. And obviously, want to talk about maybe the type of things that you're doing right now, and the best place for people to reach you as well, and any services. Curious that if people are interested, where what they could potentially get from you.
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, so right now I work with people one-on-one. I'm working actually, like I just shared before, briefly on a group coaching program where I just want to put everything that I have into one program, because I have to share and teach many things to players. But yeah, that I just have it. That they have access to that for themselves, but this is just something I'm still working on. But yeah, the best place people can reach out to me is they can go to my website, nathandeveer.com. At my Facebook, I share some things, some tools as well, just Nathan de Veer, and on Instagram, the tennis mindset expert.
Perfect. Excellent. And so I guess we can ask you this question, which I love to do at the end of the show. And this, I know you've given us a lot of great tips, but what is one key tip that you can give to the audience to help them improve their mindset?
One key tip. Okay, well, I guess I'll try to find something that I haven't shared yet before. The secret tip. One key tip, I think, it's to lower their brain wave state. Actually, by lowering your brain wave state, you automatically feel more calm. It is easier to be in the moment. You have less overthinking, frustrations, or fears. There are many ways to do it, but by bringing your minds to your senses, to your feel, or just by looking at the ball, by focusing on your breath, that's just a very simple and practical tool.
Wonderful. I love it. And I did notice on your website that you have like I think a tennis match confidence guide as well, which I think is like a free download, right? So people can just go to, I guess, nathandeveer.com and check that out. Is that right?
Yeah, I share some free tips in there. So you can just have access to that as well. And yeah, actually, maybe like if people could share this podcast on their Instagram, maybe we could do something for one person can get can win a free coaching session with me as a thank you for listening to this episode.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. So I guess yeah, we could definitely leave that link in the show notes. But I guess basically, so you said somebody, if people share this podcast episode, then you'll pick somebody to get a free coaching session. Is that how we'll do it? Probably.
Yeah, like a raffle where if you could share that on your Instagram, and if they like the post, follow me and share it. Let's say that we can do one lucky person can get a free coaching session with me just as a thank you.
Sweet. Awesome. Yeah, I didn't even know this was happening. So that's a great thing. And obviously you want to take advantage.
It just came up.
Yeah. Randomly from the great mindset of Nathan. Excellent. Cool. Very cool. Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely going to let people know about that for sure. So I guess I just want to close by asking you, is there anything that, we might have missed today that you want to talk about briefly, or any closing thoughts that you want to let the audience know about?
Closing thoughts. I think it's interesting to see. I feel like more players are utilizing mental training right now. And I feel like even in the mindset space, it's evolving. Like I've shared with some of the tools are maybe a bit outdated, and I think more and more players will be benefiting from these tools. And you already see like people like Ashley Barty became the #1 in the world after she started to work with a mental coach, and players like that, and especially at the higher levels, I think it's key because like the differences nowadays are so small and the competition is so strong nowadays. So, and I think, it has helped me to feel better and to play better, reduce my chances on injury. So there are so many benefits to it, and also just in other areas of your life. So these are some tools that you can just use for the rest of your life. And I feel like it's really something that's evolving in tennis because, if you look at, let's say, 20 years ago, like the technique of, like, if you compare a match of John McEnroe against Bjorn Borg with Roger Federer and Nadal or Djokovic, it's completely different. Like their technique is different. Like the tactics are different. They hit the ball harder. Physically, they take better care of their body. Roger's like 39, I think, right now, and he's still playing. And I feel like one of the next developments, which is already it's already kind of happening, is that mindset will become more natural. So I feel like like the faster you can take advantage of it, like the more benefits you'll get from it.
100%, Nathan. I mean, transform your mindset and you'll transform your tennis game and your life as well. So, Nathan, just want to thank you for coming on to the podcast, and really appreciate you dropping your knowledge bombs, in regards to the mental game and mindset, and helping players to really make a big difference in their games through your philosophies and advices. So I highly encourage everybody to check out nathandeveer.com and Nathan's social platforms, which we'll all have links to all these links on our show notes page. Nathan, thanks a lot for coming on to the show, and keep up the great work, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot. Take care. All right. I really hope you enjoyed my interview with Coach Nathan de Veer, and I highly encourage you to hone in on one or two of the pieces of advice that Nathan gave us that you think is most applicable to your individual unique situation, and to practice that and implement it in your training and your matches so that you can reach the next level in your tennis career. I really do hope that you enjoyed this interview, and if you did, then I would really appreciate it if you would leave a review for the Tennis Files podcast, and you can do that at tennisfiles.com/Apple Podcasts, or in your favorite podcast app. I just find that a review on Apple Podcasts seems to be the most impactful in terms of making the show more visible to everybody else, and just helping out the show as well with the whatever algorithms they use. Seems like reviews are really helpful, and most importantly, it's helpful for me to learn what I'm doing well and what I can improve upon for you in the show. I also want to leave you with a quote, as I often love to do at the end of the show, and this one is by Norman Vincent Peale, and Mr. Peale said, "Forget the mistakes of the past and press on to the greater achievements of the future." This is a very on-point quote in considering what we just talked about, because this is 100% mindset where we're just focused on achieving and improving, every little bit on each day. And of course, you can kind of use the mistakes as a training ground and for the future to not make the same mistake. But at the same time, you don't want to dwell on them. Otherwise, you're not going to have a very good outing on the court or in whatever endeavor you're pursuing. All right, well, I guess that is the end of this episode for me and for you, but I look forward to bringing you a lot more to come. And again, if you're listening to this the end of November, then I wish you a very safe and happy Thanksgiving. I know it's very different this year for most of us, but we have to press on, of course. And that's about it. So again, be safe, and hope you get to play some tennis, and check out that little contest that Nathan is having, where you can potentially win a free session with him on the mental game if you follow his Instagram account at the Tennis Mindset Expert, and then like and share the podcast post of our episode. So alrighty, all the best to you. Take care, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Tennis Files podcast. Take care.